Let's get the views of royal correspondent and writer Michael Cole, who's here. Good to see you, Michael. I mean, it is... I mean, Cameron sort of puts it beautifully. It is a very bittersweet day, isn't it?
It is. I was with you a year ago here. We, of course, knew 3 hours beforehand, that before it was announced that Her Majesty had died. It was announced at 6:30. I think that was the moment we finally said goodbye to the 20th century. And a new reign began. And the first year has been good. I would certainly give it a 9 out of 10. A very good first state visit to Germany. A palpable hit that was. We've got the state visit to France coming up. That's going to be a bit trickier, but I think it will be a triumph too. The King began extremely well. The first television address was good.
I was going to say, I thought that was remarkable, actually, because it was so emotional, compassionate towards the nation, actually.
It was terrific. And the accession, which nobody had ever seen before, the Accession Council, was extremely moving, and followed up with the Christmas broadcast and so on. Do you know, the key to it is he's happy. OK, he's not happy that his mother's gone, but he's happy because after 70 years, he's got the job. He can sit back. He's suffered the slings and arrows over the years. He's now comfortable in his own skin. He's been married to Camilla for 18 years. Diana was 15 years. And what you see on the screen is a happy man. He won't worry. It's not that he doesn't care. He won't worry what anybody else says because he's been through all that.
Yes, in fact, if you look at it, he couldn't have been this successful if the Queen had died 10 years ago.
That's a very good point. He's certainly grown into the job, and there's no doubt that Queen Camilla gives him that happiness. And I don't actually think he sees himself as a caretaker. A short reign, of course, compared with Her Majesty's record-breaking reign, it's going to be a short reign. But there have been hugely successful short reigns in the past. His great-great-grandfather, Edward VII, was immensely popular, and he was only from 1901 to 1910, 9 years. But he gave his name to the Edwardian era, which was looked at as a golden age when people looked at it. I mean, the King led in the Derby winner. He did all the things that the British love, you know, eating, drinking, enjoying himself. He was very, very popular. And as King Charles, when he was Prince Charles, he said, you know, my great-great-grandfather didn't have to do anything. He just came in a carriage and people loved him.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting, because obviously he's so long as heir to the throne, but in a way we got to understand him more than anyone who's succeeded to the throne before.
Absolutely, and he got out all the stuff he wants to say about politics and the environment and so on and so forth. I confess, I was not his greatest admirer when he was Prince of Wales, but I would say he's done a very good job. It's a good sign for the future. And, of course, he's got waiting in the wings. The most popular royals at the moment are the Prince and Princess of Wales, who don't put a foot wrong, have got a lovely family. You know, George and Charlotte and Louis, charming children being brought up, as I know, in a very normal way, giving them a great background and grounding in life. And the monarchy, I think, looks secure. And, you know, this constitutional monarchy that we all enjoy here is our best defence against extremism and dictatorship. Because at the end of the day, the King has to sign off every law. And that is a great safeguard. And every single Prime Minister who served Her Majesty, I think there were 15 of them by the time we got to Liz Truss, each one of them said that they gained immensely by having to go in on Tuesday nights to explain what the government was doing. And they found that was a useful exercise, made them even wonder whether they were doing the right thing.
And all of them say they were incredibly impressed, not just by her dignity and grace, which you would probably expect of the Queen, but by her wit and her knowledge.
Knowledge is the thing. She knew every person of note in the second half of the 20th century, and she brought that to bear, not in an overbearing way, but saying, oh, have you thought of this? I mean, I think one of the prime ministers, maybe it was Major, said, you know, she only had to raise her eyebrow and said, do you think this is entirely wise, Prime Minister? For him to actually go away and think, yes, was that entirely wise? Now, our system is not everybody's, but the Westminster system where Parliament is sovereign, the king reigns but does not rule. We've exported that round the world to very successful countries called Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and some of the other 14 realms that the king is king of across the seas. And OK, we don't have a written constitution, but that means we don't go through the agonies that the Americans go through when they want to try to change their constitution. They spend years doing it, and sometimes they don't achieve it. Our genius, if you will, is to have a flexible system. Parliament can enact anything, and then the bill comes along to the king, and until he signs it, it's not an act of Parliament. So it's a good system. We should cherish it. I think it's a good first year, and I think that the king is going to be a good king.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think a lot of people would as well. Michael, we've got to leave it there, I'm afraid, but really good to see you this morning.
My pleasure.
You.
Fascinating when you think of it, isn't it, that we went through that traumatic period of losing the Queen, but gaining a king on that day. And then we went through, how many prime ministers? I don't know since then.
Yes, quite a few.
While we were having a change of the top brass, the top job, we were still able to rely on the continuity of a monarchy. It was something to lean on, even though he was a new king at the time. I think it's remarkable. It's going to be looked upon by historians as a remarkable year, actually.
Yes, it will. It will, for some good reasons and some bad ones. So I think it's that bittersweet thing, isn't it? You know, it's we remembered the Queen's accession day without necessarily thinking about the death of her father, and as we get older. But at the moment, it's still very much the focus on the Queen for this year, the first year since she passed away.